Welcome everyone to Homeless in San Diego. My name is Greg Angel, your host, and I have the honor of working as CEO here at Interfaith Community Services. We're at Interfaith's headquarters here in Escondido, and our guest today is Mike Smack. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me.
Mike, you and I met a couple years ago. You're an artist, and you had done a pretty cool project that was benefiting Interfaith, and then you've done some amazing additional work recently. And so I can't wait for our listeners to hear about that, get to know a little bit about how you're bringing your talent to help others here locally. Before we do that, though, let's start with a little bit about you. Tell our listeners a little bit about yourself. Where are you from, and what makes you who you are, Mike?
Okay. I'm originally from the East Coast. I grew up in Virginia, traveled a little while after college. I was kind of nomadic, taught English overseas, worked a few jobs in different countries, just kind of ways to fund my travels. And along that way, I found that art was a universal language. So no matter what country I was in, you could find murals, street art, whatever, and people can understand that. Even if I couldn't speak to you, if I couldn't speak your language or you couldn't speak mine, art was that bridge. So it pulled me in. I didn't necessarily seek it out. And then through that, I wanted to use that language to communicate with people, bridge gaps. And through painting, I'm an artist of several mediums, mostly painting now. I learned photography in high school. Always had doodles in my notebooks and stuff like that. I painted houses for a summer after college, and I hated that.
So it doesn't seem artistic to paint houses. I always thought of that as just like artistic and painting houses, not necessarily connected. Am I right?
It's not. You're painting straight lines. There's no room for going outside the lines.
Yeah.
You want it clean and crispy. And I think that's why I didn't like it. It felt too boxed in.
Yeah.
So after I quit that job and thought to myself, man, I'm never going to pick up a paintbrush again. This was miserable. And then years later, having those skills, though, I knew how to use paint. I knew how to set things up, how to prep a surface, how to apply paint. So I just kind of started doing it on my own. I don't know that there's really a point that I was like, oh, okay, now I'm an artist.
Interesting.
It just kind of became a medium for me to explore ideas and a reason to open dialogue with other people, I think.
Do you consider yourself an artist now?
Yes. I think we're all artists. And I know that sounds a little bit cliche, but I think that the way you do anything you do repeatedly, you have a way that you do it. The way you put your pants on in the morning, you've done it over and over, and you've developed little nuances that make it that way. The way you make your coffee, there's an art to that. So I think the way we do things, especially things that we're doing over and over, we have our own style of doing it. So that's why I think everybody's an artist.
Would you say you were artistic as a kid?
Yes, as far as like doodles and stuff, I was always doodling because I was a pretty good student and I would get my work done fast, and then I would have idle time to just sit there and draw on my notebook or something. I didn't really pursue art classes. I played sports, and art was kind of nerdy at the time, and I wasn't into it. But then I found photography, and that's kind of what opened more creativity for me. I had a really cool photography teacher in high school, and she let us develop our own projects. So having that freedom, again, the freedom thing comes back through the artwork, through the creation process,
It's interesting. We were talking before we hit record, and you shared that you've listened to some episodes that we've done. And I asked if any of them stand out to you, and you mentioned the episode we did with Mauro Alvarez, who's a street artist, and he did the mural across the street at our recuperative care center. which has freedom written across the top of
Oh,
it.
that's right. Yeah, and the guy breaking the chains.
So it's interesting hearing you talk about freedom and then to just to get us, for me, a new perspective on the liberating quality of artwork, that it can communicate across languages, across cultures.
Yeah, I found it's everyone can appreciate it, and especially the style of art that I do now, I try to leave things open for interpretation, so I'm not necessarily dictating a certain message, because I like people to spend a little more time and look deeper in it and develop their own interpretation of it. I think that's a little more fun. It's like a mystery to solve, and everyone has their own answer to it.
Can you talk about your artwork now that you do?
Sure. So I would say right now my art is kind of divided among three main practices: murals and sign painting, which I really enjoy. Mostly working outside. I paint signs for businesses, murals for businesses, and around the community. I like that because I can use my whole body. You have to climb up and down ladders if you're painting big murals. You can stretch your arms out.
Yeah.
So it's kind of combining athletics with art, I suppose.
What's the biggest mural that you've painted?
Man, the one here is close to it.
Yeah?
I think height wise, I haven't painted much bigger than that. I've painted a mural longer, like 100 feet long.
Oh, wow.
Back in Virginia years ago. But I want to paint 20-story buildings. I want to paint 50-story buildings if I could. I want to paint a whole desert. I want to go bigger and bigger just because it's much different painting on a larger scale, because then rather than if I'm painting on a small scale, it's like I'm God creating this world all right in front of me. If I'm painting on a large scale, then I'm a little tiny ant immersed in this world that's coming alive around me.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
More experiential, immersive, I suppose.
Yeah. So sorry, I should get back to the question earlier. Murals and sign painting are a third of my art practice.
Okay.
I would say another third of it is color chemistry. I work for a paint company part-time, and I make the paint. We have formulas. We've been around for almost 100 years.
Okay.
So I follow formulas to make it, but sometimes we have to make adjustments based on maybe some pigments aren't available, and we have to change formulas a little bit. So I really have to look at the colors and know the properties of the paint. And it's art because, again, like put it on your pants, there's nuances to the process of doing things. And then the other third of my practice, I would say, is studio art, fine art painting, water photography, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So I like to paint with a camera in my water housing, and that's a whole other style that blends between painting and photography.
So if our listeners want to see your artwork, experience your artwork, do you have a website? Do you have places they can go to see
I have a
some of this?
website. My name, mikesmack.com.
Mikesmack.com. All right, cool.
I have an Instagram at ms.perp, P-E-R-P. There's some places to see my work and see it around town.
Yeah, nice. We'll throw those in the show notes for our listeners, so you can click there to check it out. And yeah, you said around town. Where are some places that for local people to be able to see your work?
Mostly in Oceanside.
Yeah,
I live in Oceanside. I've painted a bunch of stuff in the past couple of years around there. A few other spots in North County, out here in Escondido now.
Yeah.
San Marcos. The first thing I ever painted around here was down at Liberty Public Market.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little barbecue sign. I actually just went back there this weekend to see. It was 5 years ago, and it's kind of worn away, but it has aged well. It looks good.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So where is that Liberty Market?
It's in I guess like across the water from Point Loma. It's an old Navy base.
Liberty. Okay, yeah. Liberty Station. Down in Point Loma. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bunch of art studios and stuff now. It's really cool to see the way they transformed a military base to be a public gathering space now.
For sure. So our listeners can check out mikesmack.com. They can check you out on Instagram, and hopefully go and see some of the artwork too locally, whether it's at Liberty Station or Oceanside. or for a limited time, we have the availability for them to come and see the mural that you've done here. I say limited because it's going to be in a residential location that will only be available to our residents once it
Yes.
opens. That'll probably be later this summer. We're going to get to that, but before we do, Mike, how did you learn about Interfaith? How did you first get connected to our organization and our work?
So I think 3, 4 years ago, uh, at the beginning of the pandemic, or sometime during the pandemic, we received the government sent out like a stipend, like $600 check or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And at the time, I was working, and I didn't really feel that I needed it, and I thought, okay, I could just spend this money on myself, but how can I actually? I'm not going to send the check back, but how can I use it and pay it forward, and how can I create some good out of this? And so I bought a dozen pair of shoes with this company based in Los Angeles called Community Made, and they make their shoes right there. Really well made shoes, good people up there. And my idea was to paint the shoes, custom paint them for art collectors or people that want to wear one of one shoes,
Yeah, yeah.
and then sell them and donate the profits to a good cause. So I did some research about what organizations I could work with, and I came across Interfaith. I'd been referred to Interfaith for some services for through a neighbor, as well as a family member of mine had used some services of y'all's before, and so I really liked the broad amount of services that Interfaith provides.
It's huge, yeah.
As well as the backstory of it, people coming from different faiths to find a common cause to work towards and put their energies together to have a bigger impact as opposed to multiple small impacts. So I really gravitated towards that.
Well, and like art, crossing language, crossing culture, service, helping others, supporting our neighbors in challenging times, it turns out that also crosses languages, crosses cultures, right? And is a common language.
Yes.
Act of service.
Looked at it like that. That is his common thread.
So that's so cool. So you get a $600 check, and you decide to do something good. You use your artistic talents and you create these one of one shoes.
Yeah, I was a sneakerhead in high school, and
Cool.
I always got mad when somebody had the same pair of shoes as me. So I thought if I custom paint these shoes, no one will ever have the
problem
same pair
solved.
as you. Yeah,
And then you donate the proceeds to Interfaith.
yeah. It turned into a $1,000 donation.
That's awesome.
Which I felt pretty good about.
That's great.
Kind of flipping that money and putting it towards a cause that I believe in, and putting it in the hands of you all that maybe you know better what to do with it, or you have direct action. Whereas I could, go out and give $1 to everybody on the street, but I don't know exactly what's going to happen with that money. So I felt good about making that donation, and that you guys would use it for more specific purposes than what I could do myself.
Well, thank you, Mike, for doing that. Very generous, but also super entrepreneurial. You turned 600 into 1,000.
Yeah.
Helped create all these cool shoes, and you helped out our programs, and specifically the people who we're working with through those programs, all locally here. That's awesome. And then was it coming out of that you got connected with our Change Your Mind Mental Health Festival?
Yeah. So I remember worked with B a few years ago, and then Kamal approached me when he was setting up the first Change Your Mind Festival. He had visited my studio and saw some of the artwork I did in there, and because I work for the paint company, I get some paint that we can't sell. Maybe it was mislabeled or something like that.
Okay.
So I have buckets of paint that I got for free, and I would just start throwing it at my canvas. And I found, and I would use that to create a background, and then I would find shapes and forms that came through that. But I found just the action of throwing it at a canvas was so fun. It got out all sorts of feelings, whether I was angry or happy or dancing or, whatever. And I think Kamal saw that, and he asked if we could set that up at the Change Your Mind Festival. So I really found it to be a form of therapy for me. And then everyone else that has tried it, I think, has been surprised how much they enjoy it, because it's kind of like you feel like you're not supposed to be doing this. And then once you throw that paint, you're like, oh, wow, that felt good. That felt great.
It's a huge hit every year. We've done 3 Change Your Mind festivals,
Yep.
and you've been at all 3. My daughters were at the first one and they loved it. I mean, they had so much fun throwing the paint and creating something in a way that they hadn't before. So I have that personal appreciation for what you did because my daughters got so much out of it. But I know through your time over 3 years of doing this that you've made impacts with so many people through the Change Your Mind event.
Yeah.
Are there people who stand out, experiences from those that
Yeah.
you can share?
I remember specifically your daughters. That was at the first one 3 years ago.
Yeah.
That was fun. This past year, just one that comes to mind most recently, I think the Change Your Mind Festival was it on Mother's Day or was the day before?
It's the day
Mother's
before,
Day?
yeah.
Okay,
Saturday.
yeah. There was a mother with, she had a couple kids and then her niece and nephews, I believe. So it was about 5 kids, a mom, her sister, and then the grandmother. So it was a whole family that came
big
through.
family.
And the mother was telling me she just became sober. She was going through some rehabilitation programs. I think she had kind of lost connection with her kids, or I don't know if they were taken from her while she went through this program or what exactly happened. She told me that Child Protective Services was involved, but this was her first weekend with her kids after going through this program.
Oh, wow.
And so her sister and her mother were out there too, and they all came and threw some paint. And usually what I do, I have the paper set up on the wall so people throughout the day throw paint, and then I say, oh, come back at a certain time and you can choose which piece you like. But since they had, there was probably 7 or 8 people in this family, I let them do a fresh canvas just for them. And they all got in on it, man. It was so cool to see, like, from maybe 4 years old to the grandmother. So 3 generations of people throwing paint. The mother even cried, gave me a hug. Grandmother gave me a hug. And I could just see, like, the release of things that might have been weighing them down, but also the camaraderie, the family ties, like everyone working together towards one thing. And then also the discovery of them realizing, like, we're not artists, but we can make something cool like this. Like, this looks really pretty. And they all got into it. And then everybody took a piece with them. They had a really cool group photo I think I shared with you. And that was it was touching. And it was before Mother's Day. So it was, I felt the love and I felt the impact. So I even shed a little tear, I think, thinking about it. But yeah, it was a good experience there.
That's beautiful, Mike. I'm inspired by you, and I just so appreciate you sharing your talents and your joy and your love with others. And to think about that mom being able to bring her family back together, for that first weekend. A lot of people may not know that one of the barriers that prevents, especially parents, but especially moms, from getting into treatment is that they often, if they're going to go into a residential treatment program, need to have someone else watch their kids. And for a lot of people, that's just not an option.
Yeah.
And so that means a lot of often moms and sometimes dads too. A lot of parents, they don't go into treatment for that reason.
Oh, because they can't have,
because they don't want to lose their kids and they don't want to get separated, and things get complicated it's usually not that simple, right? But it's a very real barrier to accessing help. So for her to have the courage to get treatment, go through that program, and then for you to be there to support that reunification and provide some healthy activities for the family to do together. Hopefully they're still painting. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was awesome.
I love
it. Was definitely one that will stick with me.
So your latest gift to the people in the community and to Interfaith Community Services is an amazing new mural that you've painted here at our Escondido headquarters. You painted a mural inside of our Haven House emergency shelter space. So share, tell me, how did this come to be? And yeah, I want to learn more about this,
So
this
it
cool
came.
creation.
I applied for a public art project in Escondido that I needed to have a fiscal sponsor, I think they called it. So I reached out to
Yeah.
Daniel and said, "Hey, will you guys want to work with me on this?" I didn't end up getting selected for the project, which is all good, but I think that kind of got some wheels turning. Daniel reached out to me and said, "Well, hey, we have this big wall here in our office space, and would you like to paint something here?"
Yeah.
And I saw a big canvas, and I was like, "Yes,
Good
let's
job,
go, let's
Daniel.
do it."
For those of you who don't know, Daniel is the person behind the tech here. So he's running the podcast, and so he's in the room. So shout out to you, Daniel. Thank you for making that happen.
And then he said, we have this color palette. This is our secondary kind of branding, marketing color palette.
Yeah.
We'd like to use some of these colors, but otherwise we want just something that's uplifting, a relaxing vibe. And that was most of the direction that I got. And I was like, great, the rest is up to me. Cool. Let's let it rip. So as I was talking to Daniel before, this ended up being like a giant studio painting for me rather than a mural with a little more direction where I have to write in these words or paint this exact thing. Has a little more pressure to it. Whereas this, I just used the colors and had this giant canvas and just kind of let it rip. But I really wanted to take in the energy from the people here, whether they were the people going through treatment. There's some volunteers here that were really wonderful. Some of the people working here. So just chatting with them and even not about art, just chatting about other stuff too.
Yeah.
But some of that energy comes to me, and I try to pass it through me via paint onto this wall, and just exude the good vibes that I feel around here through all the people and the hope that these programs bring. I think seeing hope and talking to some of the people that are going through the program over here. What is it called again? I'm sorry.
It's our Recovery and Wellness.
The Recovery
Center.
and Wellness program.
Yeah.
Yes. Just chatting with those people and seeing the hope that things they want to do when they finish this program and seeing all that. And so I wanted to put that energy onto the wall and have it reflect out for people to enjoy later on.
So we'll link to the mural, so or those who are listening can see it. We'll send it to our law enforcement friends so you can hear in the background. And then also for those who are who are watching on YouTube, we can probably bring it up on the screen and show that way. But for those who are just listening, can you describe the art piece?
Sure. So the color palette was yellow, orange, a little bit of red, and like a teal color.
Okay.
And I started with an orange and yellow background. And backgrounds are kind of the most fun part because it's like throwing paint. Just can smear paint. I wanted to create a gradient, but also I just got up there and I try not to think too much about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I just let my hands start going, and then and while I'm painting, I go through this. I can search the corners of my mind and think about other things, and just I was using a roller to blend the colors together, and then I can sort of make myself into a compass. Do you remember, or like a protractor?
Yeah.
Where I'm the center of a circle and use the roller to make these big giant circles, larger than me. So that kind of started to give some shape to it. And then I was inspired by just outside of the space, there's crates full of tangerines and grapefruits that are donated to y'all, and then y'all give those for people to eat and share. And I was just inspired by that aesthetically, and also for me that kind of represented part of what you guys do here with the food pantry. So those circles were fun to paint. I painted some tangerines and some grapefruits on the bottom just because I was trying to bring the outside environment inside.
Yeah.
And I like when murals can sort of bridge a gap between man and nature. Man likes straight lines and 90-degree angles, and nature likes more curves and a little bit more randomness. So I try to blend the two together. But again, I didn't want to paint anything specific. I didn't set out to paint this one thing. But a lot of the natural environment, I spend a lot of time. I'm inspired by nature, plants, the landscape here in North County. I love how it just changes from beautiful beaches to amazing mountains and everything in between, how it changes so fast. So I think a lot of that, in the end, it came out kind of looking like a landscape maybe, but I feel that it's loose enough that people can make their own interpretation of what they see through the layers.
It's a beautiful painting. Thank you so much for creating it and creating it in a place that will be so special for so many. It's our Haven House emergency shelter space, which for many years has served as the only year-round shelter in North San Diego County for all genders. And about a little late last year, we moved the individuals who were in that program across the street to our Turk Recuperative Care Center. A lot of them had significant recuperative care needs, medical conditions that required much more care than we were able to provide in a shelter type environment. So we are operating a smaller than we used to number of those shorter term housing beds across the street for general community members who are without housing, and may or may not have medical conditions as well. The space that you helped create is about to undergo renovations to open later this summer, later this year, as an expanded shelter with an emphasis and a focus on individuals overcoming a substance use disorder and having a safe place to get sober, to get clean, and then to get connected to a longer term treatment program. So that location, that place is going to be an absolute inflection point for hundreds and thousands of people in the years ahead.
Yeah, that's really exciting, and I understand it triples the bed space of what you currently have. And knowing that too, I really wanted to reflect the outside. I know if you have to stay in a confined space for a significant amount of time, it can kind of be draining. But I hope that this mural reflects some parts of nature. Definitely was inspired by some sunsets out there while I was painting as well. Some of those color gradients. Yeah, and I hope it's people can kind of explore it while they're in there relaxing and lounging out, and maybe it'll be a conversation point for some of those people to create friendships or talk to people while they're here.
Well, I know you had a lot of those conversations while you were here. You mentioned with volunteers, with residents in our program, with some of our staff. Anything that came out of those conversations? Anything else that you want to share with our listeners?
Yeah, I remember one guy in particular. I can't remember his name, but he was here. He was in the program, and I think he had just a few days left. But he was telling me his daughter's an artist as well, and I kind of got us talking about that. And then he shared with me he actually has 5 kids, and he was really looking forward to trying to visit them after he's completed this program. So I really took some of that hope that I heard through his story and tried to put that into the artwork as well. And I felt proud of him. I had just met this guy, but I felt very proud of what he was doing, to pick himself up and try to get himself on a better path.
It's hard. It's hard to make big changes in a life. And when there are so many barriers, when somebody is in that situation, they're struggling with addiction issues, and they want to change, they build up the courage. They're fine. Okay, let's do it. And then guess what? There's no room. There's no place for you to go. That happens every day, unfortunately, to people without health insurance, people who are experiencing homelessness. And so that's where the detox shelter that we're talking about is so important, because you mentioned tripling the beds. Right now, we have 11 beds here at this location for detox, withdrawal management services. It's a 14-day program for somebody to get cleaned up and then get connected into a longer-term treatment program. Unfortunately, those 11 are just not enough. And far too often when we connect with somebody, often who's right here on the streets of Escondido, who wants to get into treatment, we don't have a place for them to go. And it's among the hardest conversations to have, to say, can you wait until next week? Because we know that life doesn't work that way.
Right.
And so expanding that critically needed resource is going to be life-saving, life-changing. And
yeah, because who knows what could happen in that week while they're waiting.
Exactly. But, like, let's not sugarcoat it. Overcoming a significant substance use disorder is really hard.
Absolutely.
And so for somebody to be doing that here in our location, they're not going to be feeling well. They're going to be really like in the thick of it. And so to brighten that space up and to support that path forward with something that crosses all cultures, all language, the artwork that you've created, it's really a beautiful thing, Mike.
I'm excited for the there were some ladies working there that came in and like, oh, we're gonna have our new office in here. This is so great. So for them as well.
Oh yeah, for our team,
helping those people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited for people to enjoy that, and I personally enjoyed the process. So thank you to you guys for giving me the creative freedom and such a big canvas to just let it rip and have fun.
Yeah, we got to find some more canvases for you.
Oh yeah, let's go.
We got some other buildings, so let's find that. Let's make that happen. Mike, thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for being who you are, for teaching me more about the power of art, the ability to communicate and connect with people.
Yeah,
I really appreciate that.
Yeah,
appreciate you.
I appreciate what it's done for me, and I feel fortunate beyond what I feel that I deserve sometimes. So it just I try to pour that out of me and spread the joy, spread the love, spread good fortune through art, and just it's just a good way to connect with people and uplift all those around us.
For sure. We always have a call to action on this show, and so we have listeners who are interested in helping people overcome homelessness. They're interested in making this world a better place. They're interested in helping their neighbors. We have listeners who work in organizations like Interfaith. We have individuals who are experiencing homelessness who are listening. So do you have anything that you want to share with our listeners as a call to action, or any words of wisdom, anything else that you want to share that they can take away?
I think just everybody's a person. There's no reason to not treat another person like a person. I think drop any preconceptions and just speak to that person, look them in the eye, make a connection, and we can all uplift each other and have a thriving community.
That's really well said, Mike. I don't think we've ever done a podcast that has had more sirens in the background than this one. So I apologize to our listeners for a little siren action. But you know what? I think it's for me, I'm just reflecting on your message of connecting with people personally in the different ways to do that. And we work so closely with law enforcement in so many ways that I don't know. It's just fitting that they joined our show today in a different way. Well, it makes me think we gotta have some of our first responders on to share their experiences as well.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. All right, Mike. Anything else you want to share with our listeners today before we wrap up?
I don't think so. I appreciate you guys having me. Again, stoked for the opportunities that you give me, and I look forward to continuing our partnership and see what else we can do together.
Yeah, well, to our listeners, check out mikesmack.com. Check out his amazing artwork. It sounds like you have some opportunities if people are looking for murals and other additions to
anybody
to where
with
they're
a
at.
50-story building out there, hit me up. I'm trying to go big.
40-story maybe?
Okay, I'll accept that.
All right. Hey, Mike, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Greg.